I'm going to try this on him now, yeah? Now this, a regular individual that you know, but he'll be able to correct me now. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ
الله الصمد
لَمْ يُلِدْ
ولم يولد
لَمْ يُلِدْ
ولم يولد
Is it لَمْ يُلِدْ or لَمْ يُلَدْ?
لم يولد
لَمْ
يولد
قُلْ هُوَ
لم يلد ولم يكن له كفوا
There you go. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ
لم يلد ولم يولد
Yeah. Allahu Samad
لم يلد
لَمْ يَلِدْ
ولم يولد.
I was able to correct him, he was able to correct me. These are the verses that I quoted at the start. That this is the pH test for God. He is one, He's everlasting, eternal, does not beget, nor is He begotten. And we were able to just bounce off each other. I was able to correct him, he was able to correct me. Can't do that with regards to the Bible. Can't do that with regards to the Vedas. So this is that. The third thing and final thing I'm going to leave you with is the Prophet. Yeah, you got all these people making claims. There's one book, you can grab it before you go. It's called Forbidden Prophecies. Yeah, you've got people, the Mayans, you know, the 2012, they said the world was going to end. The I Ching, the Chinese, and then you've got, you know, the Scientologists and all these guys. Notice their prophecies. And then notice when the Prophet Muhammad makes a prophecy. His prophecy is specific and it's time bound and it can be checked by non-Muslim sources. For example, at the time of the Prophet, the Byzantines were losing against the Persians. However, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, no problem. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, within 9 years, the Byzantines will beat the Persians. Now, at that time, they were losing. There was a plague. They were being attacked by the plague. They didn't have the artillery. They were in problems. However, within 9 years, they did beat the Persians. And this can be verified by a non-Muslim at that time, whose transcript we have is called the Chronicles of Theophanes. Yeah, you can Google that. Again, you can check the video later on. Chronicles of Theophanes, or Theophanes, however you pronounce it. So this again is non-Muslim. So it's not just within the Islamic tradition. And the final thing that I'm going to leave you with is not even the cracking of the moon. It's how we preserve the sayings of the Prophet through the chains of narration. I can give you something the Prophet said, and I can tell you who narrated from the Prophet, who narrated from him, and who narrated from him. And there's a narration of the Prophet that he said, don't kill women and children. Yeah. So the Prophet narrated this, and Abdullah bin Umar heard it from the Prophet. Nafi heard it from Abdullah bin Umar. Imam Malik heard it from Nafi. And then we can pick it up from their book. I'm conscious you have to go. Yeah. So I'm just gonna, the reason why I just wanted to give you a few things. So when you watch this video, then you'll be able to check each individual thing that I said. No, so this is gonna be on Sam Dawah. Yeah, Sam Dawah. And just check Sam Dawah. Yeah, Sam Dawah, and there's gonna be others. There's Dawah to Soul and SF Dawah, but Sam Dawah will be easy to remember. Yeah, check it out.
Brother, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Food for thought. Food for thought.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Have a very safe journey. Take care, inshallah. Bye. Yeah? Talk about overeating. Also try to connect it to which countries it's referring to, because most of those statistics are to do with the Arab nations and their GDP and their...
Reflect. That makes sense. Because when you have a lot of money, you can break the fast with a lot of food.
Come on.
That makes sense. And then there are things that I don't necessarily agree with, the religion in general. I think there are good ideas and stuff you can take from there, but by and large, I think, especially at a societal level, I don't think it's a good idea. I think, why? Because a lot of it is not grounded in what I understand to be true. And this is something I only realized after having done my whole 180 from being heavily religious and being very pro-God, you know, to then being where I am now. What I used to do, I used to do apologetics, go to Dalston and preach and all that. When I would do that, people would ask me these questions, you know. And I've always pushed for truth. My thing is, if I discover something as a fact and it goes against what I believe, I'm dropping that belief, you know, because now there is truth that goes against what I thought to be true. If that makes sense.
I'm just trying to recall your name again.
Osas.
I know
Osas, yeah.
Osas, yes. So it's like O and then SAS.
You're not sure, ask me again.
Yeah, no, great. Yeah. Okay, so Osas, that is very interesting that you mentioned that. You know why? Because I would say there was more simplicity, possibly about 20 plus years ago, But now, because there's heavily kind of involvement in philosophy, that's why I would say probably that the argumentation and the questions have gone it's gone in a different direction. And because of that,
I understand the Dawah space too.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like Dawah has evolved. People are pushing more for a sort of like an empirical angle. So when you hear when I talk to some of the other guys here, they argue from, they try to blend it into the Western empiricism, which is different from the Dawah you get in West Africa, which is very much a complete push against evolution, for instance, where they're like, no, of course not, it's just not true. When you come to the West, the ideas are different. They go, oh no, we're not necessarily saying evolution isn't true, but things like natural selection and, you know, common descent from like lesser animals isn't true. In other words, it's a lot more fine-tuned idea that kind of works with our current understanding of how we came to be now.
I've actually had the good fortune of going to Gambia and even Switzerland. So I would say that they're two extremes in terms of what society would say in terms of facilities for education. And it's very interesting to see when you do speak to the people. I would also draw it back to Maslow's triangle. And it actually comes down to this point that, you know, somebody that's struggling to survive, somebody that's just living hand to mouth, they don't care about philosophy, they don't care about evolution, they care about the main principles and any other idea that comes, and it's cognitive dissonance. Like, it's difficult for them to, without understanding and education of certain imams, it's going to be very difficult for those ideas to penetrate the cerebrum, in other words. So that's literally what I've noticed. However, when you do get certain people that maybe are in the maybe higher levels of society in terms of income, they have more time because they're not living.
Reflect on these things.
And you can access, like, I'm doing this online course, and on this online course you got some people from America, you got some people from Egypt, some people. So even the way Zoom classes happen, and like there was this one course on philosophy that I saw, and there was somebody, I think it was either from Uganda or Nigeria or Kenya, one of the three, I forget, and somebody goes, this is remarkable how me sitting in a village in Kenya, I'm able to access this university lecture on YouTube. But think about it, it's only because that person is, their stomach is filled.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I think that's...
Come on, way.
Yeah, I think they're going that way.
No, you make a good point in that the sort of explosion of access to information, even in rural areas, has improved, right? Because you have a smartphone, which is very big in Africa, because people don't really necessarily have access to steady power, to have like a laptop or a desktop to sit down and Google stuff. With a smartphone, people are getting sharper. People are asking questions, right?
Yes.
It was one of the when I was reflecting, it took a while to live religion, but thinking about it, one of the things I thought would be the biggest issue for religion would be this era we live in now, where people have access to information to fact check things that a lot of these scriptural writers didn't know we could fact check. Put it that way. And it's not just Islam, it spans across all religion, where you have claims that are made, and people can then go and look up empirical facts that can be fact checked, and then go, well, that doesn't play. Things like that. I was talking to some other guy over there. We're talking, he's a Christian, and we were talking about the predictions of the end of time. One of the predictions is that the stars in the night sky would drop to the ground like fireflies, things like that. It was so obvious, the person that wrote that thought the stars are actually that small, and they would drop and maintain that size, not knowing that the stars are massive. The sun is a star and is actually a small star. So just to give you an idea of how the current era we're in now, it's partly why I actually became religious as well. It's the fact that there's limitless amounts of information out there that you can use to learn and fact check things and really start to ask questions. Because that was what happened. Because I would start to ask my religious preachers questions, and they were just clueless. Because I'd go preach, give out pamphlets, and you have your answers. You have your answers that are prepped from the prep training for evangelism. We call it evangelism. You call it Dawah. And when you talk to a non-religious person or somebody that has done their homework, it doesn't take long to know that this person knows what they're talking about. And you start asking questions, and you go, okay, I don't know the answer now, just leave that with me, and blah, blah, blah. So I go back and I ask questions, and the preachers don't know what they're talking about too. Or they point you to something that's demonstrably wrong and insist it's right, and I'm like, well, you don't know what you're saying, so, you know. So it was that process that pushed me out of religion.
It's actually very interesting what you said, because, and I'm now going to take the discussion and I'm going to prove everything that I say, obviously, that everything that you've mentioned, every single one of them, Islam doesn't fall in those traps. Absolutely and clearly not. And I'm going to back up. Everything is obviously all going to be recorded. You can fact check it at home as well. And I'm going to try and give you every evidence that comes into my mind that I've memorized, that you can at this moment be like, okay, it's here, and he's not just speaking off the top of his well, just from his whims and desires. And you'll also be, you know, Sam Dawah, you can check it afterwards as well. All right, so Osas, let's go back to the basics. As you know, the DJs used to say back in the days, let's go back to basics. So let's go back to basics. And because you've left the religion, I'm sure you're familiar with certain philosophers that even liberal and theology-based people use, and that's the likes of Descartes. Yeah. So Descartes came up and he said, I think, therefore I exist. Yeah? So he was talking about existence. Now, no matter how skeptical Osas you become, is it Osas or Osas?
Both work.
Excellent. So Osas, no matter how skeptical you are, you're standing there and you're like, you know what, Zeeshan? Nothing. I don't want to accept anything, nothing. Anything you say, no. All right, okay, Osas, no problem. Do you accept, Osas, that there is existence?
And there is existence. I can't prove it, but I do accept it. Yeah.
You can't prove it, but you accept that there is existence, yeah?
Yes.
Otherwise, this discussion would be futile.
Yeah, it's an axiom. Like they're
very good.
You know, what's the name?
Self-evident proof. Yeah.
Self-evident truths that we just have to accept. You're here, I'm here, type of thing.
Excellent.
The only way we can operate, in other words, objective truth, where we can say, we look at things and go, this is demonstrably true.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. So now that there's existence, we accept that there's existence. Would you say that there is, and I'm going to elaborate on this, that there is uniformity, regularity, and stability in nature? And what I mean by this is, if I was to ask you, and feel free to jump in, if I was to ask you why this watch is not randomly combusting, it's not randomly floating away, it's not randomly disappearing, or you have enough trust that when you're crossing the road, you're not just going to end up in Egypt, cars aren't just going to come in and out of existence. For us to even do science, we have to accept that there is a degree or level of uniformity, regularity, and stability, as the philosophers say. Do you accept that as a reasonable premise?
I think in some areas of our reality, there is stability and a sense of balance and all that.
Yeah, because if there's none, you just can't do science. It's absolutely impossible for you to do science without there being a degree of uniformity, regularity, and stability.
Definitely a degree of uniformity that is observable, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I mean, you think about it. You know, we've got like the news, breaking news after every hour. If there was no uniformity, regularity, stability, there will be breaking news every minute. Oh, Big Ben has disappeared. Right. It's now on top of the Statue of Liberty.
There's definitely some order to our existence.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
In that sense. But that is, I feel like that is perceived in that, take our Earth, for instance, right? We have water cycle, sun rising up, going down, the moon, all that sense of balance. But at the grand scheme of things, it's not necessarily balanced. We have asteroids flying into Earth, we have heat death incoming, we have the sun that will expand and consume the Earth one day. In other words, whilst there is a perception of order and regularity, in the grand scheme of things, it's chaos.
Okay, so with regards to the asteroids, when they come in, there's so many layers of the Earth's atmosphere that most, I would say most, if not all, get broken up, come in. And I think it was about 10 odd years ago that there was an asteroid in Russia. And by the time it came down to our atmosphere, it came as pebbles and it just caused minor discomfort. The sun
still comes in.
Yeah, it still comes in, but
yeah, wiped out the dinosaurs.
Yeah, they wiped out the dinosaurs, but not humanity. And that's what, as humans, we say that's the distinguishing feature between us and dinosaurs.
We've had asteroids that have actually come in, parts of it broke away, but not all of it, big enough, and it crashed and killed people.
Yeah, killed people, but not humanity as a whole.
Not humanity as a whole.
Exactly, and that's where we'll then bring in certain prophecies of the Day of Judgment, and we say, look, here are the prophecies, and the two don't contradict.
Also,
Yeah? For example, for us to say that, oh, this is a prophecy of the Day of Judgment, yeah, Jesus will return, the Mahdi will come, and so on and so forth, and an asteroid comes and wipes everyone out, that's automatically proven our beliefs to be false, isn't it? Because those things haven't come to pass. But as long as society is continuously living and those prophecies are coming true one by one, this is in favor of Islam and in favor of the prophecies that the Prophet said. Second thing, even with regards to the sun eventually exploding, or the grand crunch, as they say, that again is not contradicting Islam. It's actually in favor of Islam, because if we're saying that there will be a day of judgment where everything will be destroyed, that's in line with that. Yeah, we're saying that prophecies will take place, then destruction will happen. If destruction happens before, then you can raise the finger and say this is incorrect. However, if the order is in the timeline of the prophecies coming first and then that, we've got absolutely no issue with that. But we're going on a tangent. Remember this point, Osas, yeah? So what I said was, we've got existence, we've got uniformity, regularity and stability.
Not in all areas. That's the part I disagree with.
Okay, but when you say not in all areas, I'm talking in areas for us to be able to do science.
In areas for us to be able to do science, I would say even that's limited, because the point you made earlier about how the fact that we haven't been wiped out justifies that these things are true. But if we get wiped out, there'll be nobody to question that these things are not true. In other words, we can see that stars, for instance, will expand and consume the planets around them. We know that this is the life cycle of stars. We know that Earth falls within the line, the shooting range of the sun when it tries to die, right? So are we then saying that that is the end of the world because science can see that that is coming at some point in the future? Or are we then saying, because we see the randomness of the fact that things can happen, look at a black hole, for instance, sucking things in, or you look at the fact that stars will expand and consume planets, doesn't that suggest a sense of chaos?
Would you?
He does not care.
It's like, you know, when a vehicle's reversing. And it says vehicle is reversing. That's what it sounds like. All right, so with regards to the sun, Walaikum salam. With regards to the sun, would you accept that before it explodes or whatever happens, would you say that we at least have, give and take, about a million years? Yeah? About a million. And would you say that's enough time for human beings, because the timeline that we have is approximately 100 years for us to colonize, say, Mars? Yeah, or even possibly travel faster than light, travel other places. So the timeline that we're dealing with, the sun exploding and all of that, again, still falls within the line that, let's just say Earth is destroyed. Who's to guarantee that we're even going to be on Earth? Who's to guarantee that we're even going to be in the solar system? So again, the timelines still form and still fall in line with theology and with religion. Whether it's the star, whether it's the sun, whether it's the sun, the star, whether it's Earth, whatever it may be. But coming back to this point, with regards to us not acknowledging science to be uniform, regular and stable, what you're doing...
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, but let's just say, you did say that there's certain aspects of that you don't accept.
Yeah, I'm saying, because what you said was...
Which other aspects?
It's the chaos of our existence, really.
Like what?
The fact that there's nothing stopping an asteroid from coming in tomorrow.
Yeah, there is. There's many layers in our atmosphere. There's at least 5 layers in our atmosphere that actually break apart the asteroid before it comes.
But that's not guaranteed.
Don't you think that's amazing, though?
I think it's cool, yeah.
5 layers that stop an asteroid.
We even
coming. Mars only has barely one.
Don't we even have like there's an asteroid belt around Saturn that pulls a lot of the asteroids that shoot in towards Earth into Saturn's orbit, so it doesn't impact Earth. So you could even argue that, that's something miraculous about that.
No, you don't have to say miraculous. You could just say, that's cool, isn't it?
That's
cool, isn't it?
The point being, we might see things that we perceive to work in our favor, but I would argue that we only see that because it's from our perspective. In the grand scheme of things, the universe as we know it, given what we know about the way the world works today, the way the life in general, the cosmos, everything works today, we are insignificant, and then it goes against claims that are made in...
Why would you say that, and what's your basis?
What's my basis of what's saying we're insignificant? The grand scale. The fact that we are a tiny speck of dust in an insignificant part of the cosmos, right? Considering when a lot of these scriptures were written, they were written from the perspective of man, where we were in the center of the universe. That's why you look at old Earth models, we're at the center of the universe, you have the sun rising around, you have the dome and all that stuff. These were real beliefs that people had, and then they fed into our scripture.
Quran doesn't say that, by the way, yeah? Quran didn't accept that.
Well, from what I know about the Quran, it does say that it spread the earth. The interpretation is, it's all up for interpretation, right?
No. We're not going to take the Christian way out.
No. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's all for interpretation. I'm just saying it's based off the reading. No, I'm not giving any opinion on it. Based off the reading, saying the earth was spread. Sorry to keep interrupting. I hope you don't mind. No, of course not.
Okay, excellent. So you said based, because sometimes I forget. So you said based upon the reading. Arabic reading or English reading?
A literal reading, Arabic or English.
No, because if you're looking at Arabic reading of the carpet, which you're saying is spread out, the actual word that's used is a spiral and a spring, like wrapping around, like you wrap a turban around, and the way you wrap a turban around a spherical object. Yeah, you can't. But in English, the translation is different. In fact, there's many things that in English, that's the mistake that a lot of people make. They'll take the English reading, and then they think that that's the default position. However, the English reading it's a very loose.
Yeah, because the way the language is written is not what it was translated to. I get that completely.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, even if you take the Quranic reading, there are things that you would read in the Quran and go, knowing what we know now, though that's not true. And then look at the origin, for instance. Even in Arabic, I could argue, without reading the Arabic text, that the Quran suggests that we came from Adam and Eve, right?
Yeah.
What we know now goes against that. That's a good example. And my point is,
what we know at the moment, not
at the
what
moment,
we know now.
What we know now, it can change in the future.
Yeah, induction. You know the problem of induction of science. That's something scientists put to the side. So whenever you talk about science, which you have done, first, for us to even move forward, you have to prove to me that induction, because over, I would say 80% of science uses induction. Yeah, that's a conservative number. Induction is this. So today, the sun is rising. Prove using science that the sun will rise again tomorrow. The only way...
Science doesn't only operate on induction, though.
But I didn't say that. I said 80% of science relies on induction. So let's just say copper wire conducts electricity. What's to say that it will conduct electricity tomorrow? Water is making the seed grow. What's to say it's going to work tomorrow without falling in circular reasoning? You can't. Yeah, David Hume brought up this. Well, some say he came up with the problem of induction. Some say that it was come up before. But again, science has to tolerate induction. It says it's the inference to the best explanation. Yeah, it cannot prove induction. Yeah, so whatever we're doing today, according to science, number one, it can't deal with induction. And the other thing that you were saying, our understanding shows that this is false. No, because number one, you have to deal with four things. One is the replication crisis. Yeah, and the replication crisis is when you look at, and I think it was Amgen replicated certain scientific studies, and they noticed that only 11% gave the same results. And psychological, there was one which wasn't scientific based, but it was psychology based. They said less than 50% gave us the same.
Are you saying in the hard sciences, majority of the tests that were tried to be replicated failed in the hard sciences? I'm not talking psychology, I'm talking physics.
Yeah, that's why I gave you two. Yeah. I gave the first one, Amgen, was biotech firm, and the other one was a psychology firm. Whichever a person wants to take, I'm covered from both sides. So you can check this afterwards. So this
I've read up on the product. So from my understanding of it,
The replication crisis. Yeah.
Replication crisis, yes. The problem of reproduction. Basically reproducing tests that have
Yes.
been verified to be true. Right? Things have been said,
Yes,
okay, this
yes.
is the case, the phenomenon. You do this test to get this answer.
Yes, yes.
Now, the thing with the scientific processes is that is baked into the scientific process, to my understanding anyway.
Say that again.
The thing with the scientific process
Yes.
is that replication is baked into it for it to be verified as true. In other words, for me to take what you said as true,
Yes.
I should be able to replicate the test you've done and arrive at the same answer.
Yes.
Yeah? Design my own test model, do my calculations, do whatever,
That's my point.
and then arrive at the same answer. But my point is that replication there is what grounds science. So when you say things like, oh, there's a replication problem, that tells me that those guys haven't done science properly. Because if you do it properly, you get your hypothesis, yeah, you test your hypothesis.
How do you do science properly? What's your criteria for doing science properly?
You have a hypothesis, right? You observe a phenomenon. Yeah? Observe a phenomenon, then that induction comes into play. And you go, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's note all your thoughts down, and then you test to fail.
Yeah. Look, what you're
You
saying.
asked me a question, I'm explaining.
Yeah,
how
sorry,
it's
so
done.
my mistake.
So you test to fail. By testing to fail is you test all your ideas to see the one that breaks. The ones that break, you push to the side. Until you get the one that all the ways you've tried to break it, don't break it. Then you take it, another person takes that same thing that you've explained, they come up with their own model, try to break it, don't break it. That's the peer review process and what I'm trying to explain. So when it's been peer reviewed, and then those guys go, you know what, I did mine, 2 + 2 is 4, 2 + 2 is 4, 2 + 2 is 4, and we have a general understanding that 2 + 2 is 4. When it's done at that level, you will not find me one scientific study. Tell me if there is. In the STEM fields,
Yeah.
that goes against that.
Right.
You will not find it.
Right. There was a reason why I interrupted, because I knew exactly where you were going and I just wanted to save us time.